Guys, I can't compose myself anymore. I'm getting pissed, I'm getting annoyed, and I think so is everybody about this whole Conor McGregor situation. There is so many question marks up in the air. Is Conor even coming back? Some people have given up on this and said, hey, we will never see Conor compete in the Octagon again, while others speculate he'll be back for UFC 300, with Conor McGregor's coach claiming that the UFC keeps delaying his return, and Conor McGregor has been ready for a long time. What is going on? When is Conor McGregor going to return? When do I think he's going to return? We're going to get into all that and more, but first I want to remind you guys to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. We're trying to hit 20K by the end of the year. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, so I know you're going to help me with that goal. And today I mostly want to talk about the fact that the UFC is clearly delaying this Conor McGregor return. Now, could it be at UFC 300? I do think that is still a possibility, and we're going to get into why. But for those of you guys that live under a rock or new MMA fans, Conor McGregor's last fight was against Dustin Poirier, where he snapped his leg in the beginning of the first round and broke his leg, and the guy has been out for a very long time. It's been over 2 years, and if he comes back next summer, it will be 3 years since he broke his leg, which would be absolutely insane because damn, time really does fly, man. I feel like it was just recently the guy broke his leg. But regardless, you know, the guy was quiet all of 2022 basically, and in 2023 the guy comes back, does the Ultimate Fighter, and the UFC announces that he is going to be fighting Michael Chandler at the end of the season. And Michael Chandler, I thought, wasn't the best choice for the season. If you guys recall, I said at the time I thought Gaethje would be better, I thought Poirier would be better, I thought Tony Ferguson would be better, I thought Masvidal would be better, basically because these guys would have some sort of rivalry with Conor McGregor. I mean, Conor McGregor has gone back and forth with those guys multiple times in the past, where Michael Chandler, it seems to be some sort of weird respect between the two, and I almost feel like Conor McGregor kind of doesn't treat him seriously. If you remember the last season of the Ultimate Fighter, I mean, Conor McGregor was really going in on him being from Bellator, basically trying to allude that the guy's not really up there with the pros and he's not the best in the world.
I'm in the UFC since he's in nappies.
Now, I don't think that is true. I mean, you look at Michael Chandler's fight with Dustin Poirier at MSG about a year ago. Chandler, that was his last fight, and he was doing very well up until he got finished. The first round was very close. He did get knocked down, so you might have to give it to Poirier. Round 2 was a clear Michael Chandler round, and in round 3 he was winning up until that finish where he got reversed and he got submitted by Dustin Poirier. But it was a close fight, and Dustin Poirier, I mean, yes, he did just lose to Justin Gaethje, but the guy is still one of the best guys in the world, and we've seen him, you know, beat Conor McGregor. You can make an argument that Michael Chandler did better against Dustin Poirier than Conor McGregor did in their fight, and it would be a totally fair argument to make. But after the Ultimate Fighter wrapped up in August, we've been all wondering, hey, when is Conor McGregor supposed to return? I mean, when the Ultimate Fighter was announced, we were told September, then December, and now obviously we know it's not going to be September or December, seeing that the September card passed and obviously December is about to hit. The next possible date, with all these new pay-per-views being announced between, you know, Sean Strickland and Dricus Du Plessis all the way to O'Malley vs. Vera 2, it seemed like the obvious choice. Conor McGregor's big return against Michael Chandler should take place at UFC 300 in April. It makes sense too because of the whole USADA situation. Obviously Conor McGregor has been in a back and forth with USADA over the past year because he was out of the pool, had to submit back into the pool, and had to wait 6 months or so. So the 6 months will be up in April and he will be available to fight. So it perfectly lines up, and I think that it is possible for Conor McGregor to still return at UFC 300, but there's been a lot of rumblings that it might be delayed once again. This would be like the 4th delay for Conor McGregor's return, and it is apparently going to be in the summer. I'd assume International Fight Week.
He wants to, you know, he's got to sit out for the 6 months to get back into the drug testing pool. So we realistically could be looking at him next summer.
Now, if this happens, I'll definitely be annoyed, because first of all, what will be the main event for UFC 300? I think even if you do Adesanya vs. Pereira, which in my opinion is the biggest fight you can make right now, that could at least headline UFC 300, I mean, I don't think that's even big enough for UFC 300, and even if you stack it with an undercard, I feel like the main event has to be something big. It has to be something that the world is talking about, and there have been talks about the UFC not wanting to put Conor McGregor on that UFC 300 card, simply because UFC 300 will sell a lot of pay-per-views no matter what, because it's the big event, and of course they're going to stack that card. So why would they waste UFC 300 being on the same pay-per-view as Conor McGregor's return, when instead you could have 2 massive pay-per-views? And I really would not be surprised if they do something like this. And I think you have to feel for Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. This fight has been talked about over a year, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the fight got announced, I believe, in January. There were talks, of course, throughout the whole 2022 year. Maybe if this was for the BMF title with Justin Gaethje, and that's a massive fight. I think that is a bigger fight than the fight with Chandler. If that were the fight, you know, I think that the hype could have been continued, but I just think at this point, day by day, we are losing hype, losing excitement for the Michael Chandler Conor McGregor fight, and it's becoming to a point where I honestly do feel bad for Michael Chandler, because there's so many people saying Chandler move on, Chandler fight someone else, so many people saying, hey, Conor McGregor should fight somebody else. Meanwhile, Michael Chandler has now been on the sidelines for over a year waiting for this fight, done a whole season of the Ultimate Fighter, just to inevitably not get that fight. You gotta give it to Chandler. They did the whole season, you did the whole build up, the promos are already there. I think at this point, switching opponents would not be be a good idea. But I feel bad for Conor and Michael Chandler. Let's look at Conor McGregor. I mean, the guy has been sidelined now for over 2 years. By the time he returns, it'll be almost 3 years. Even if that is April, it'll almost be 3 years. And this isn't a situation where they're like, okay, you know what? It's going to be sometimes 2024. No, it hasn't been like that. There's been rumors time and time again with December being in the mix, with September being in the mix. This is time and time again where the UFC is saying, okay, we're gonna have the fight at this date, and both fighters, you know, looking at it saying, hey, I'm excited, then that getting pulled away. It's very reminiscent to me of 2020 when Conor McGregor, you know, fought Cowboy Cerrone, and the UFC kept him on the sidelines for absolutely no reason for a year just to lose to Dustin Poirier. Conor McGregor is a superstar, and right now, I mean, the guy is 35. He is not getting younger, and Michael Chandler especially is not getting younger. Like, the dude is almost 40. So at this point, it's like you're wasting time in Conor McGregor's prime, right? I mean, Conor McGregor's prime is probably past now, and I'm not even saying because of all those losses. I'm just talking about athletic prime, plus the fact that he broke his leg. I'm worried for Conor's return, and we're gonna get into that in another video, but you're wasting time of Conor McGregor's prime, and I feel like the UFC right now is waiting for that perfect opportunity, waiting for the moment to bring Conor McGregor. Is it UFC 300? Is it International Fight Week? It doesn't need to be a big event. Let it be UFC 301 for all I care. Let it be UFC 299. I don't care the number, and nobody else cares. They're going to hear Conor McGregor, and they're going to come. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be this massive event. Get Conor McGregor active. Like, let's get Conor McGregor fighting 3 times a year. The guy wanted to fight 4 times in 2020. That is 4 massive pay-per-views, and we're just gonna give that up. Like, what is the UFC thinking? Now, the only other thing I will say to defend the UFC is Conor McGregor, to be fair, took his sweet time hopping in the USADA pool. Now, my opinion on the whole USADA situation, right? If Conor McGregor was using it to heal his leg, I understand. I mean, that is a type of injury you might not be able to walk again. There's people in the real world that they break their arm or they break their leg and they suffer such nerve damage. Like, that is a possibility, but when you have as much money as Conor McGregor, he has all the best doctors, he has access to the best medicine, and taking steroids, taking human growth hormone, which is probably what he's taking, they can help rebuild a lot of the damaged parts in your leg and help with the return, getting you to the most healthy spot. Like, look at Chris Weidman, right? He came back from a similar injury, and that was just a couple of months ago, right? And you see his fight, I mean, the guy was getting, let's be honest, dominated, right? Brad Tavares absolutely dominated Chris Weidman, and we saw after the fight, I mean, Chris Weidman was battered. I mean, he tore his ACL. He's probably going to be out for another long time, and credit to Chris Weidman, he didn't use any steroids, but at the same time, it's a serious injury. We're talking about not being able to walk again, let alone fight again, and this is all for something that really isn't Conor's fault, right? Conor, it's not really his fault that he broke his leg, so I don't necessarily blame him for taking it. However, if you're taking it way after for use outside of, you know, just healing your leg, that's where it becomes a problem. And to me, there's no evidence that Conor was taking it longer than he was supposed to, so I don't want to just make that accusation, but it's certainly possible, and he definitely took a long time entering the USADA pool. So to be fair, it isn't like in April he was like, hey, let me enter this thing ASAP, and his 6 months would have been up a month ago, and then maybe then I'd be like, yo, where is this fight? What are we doing here? He could have fought in December, but Conor did take a very long time entering, so that is kind of his fault. However, I think UFC 300 is the perfect main event. Now, will this happen in UFC 300? I honestly don't know. I think it might. It was kind of a meme on the channel for a while during the tough build-ups when I was doing the tough videos, reviewing the episodes. I kept believing December, man. You saw me, guys. I was an avid defender of December. I was like, guys, don't worry. It's going to happen in December. I still think it's going to happen in December. And I was making videos speculating here and there, and inevitably it did not happen in December. And I did look like quite the clown. So I don't want to go out on my shield this time and say it's going to happen at UFC 300, but I still feel like it's going to happen at UFC 300. Why? Well, first of all, a lot of people are talking about how John Kavanagh, Conor McGregor's coach, did come out and say, hey, that the UFC is extending the date. Well, if you actually watch the interview, the only thing he does say is that apparently it is extended because Dana White said it in that clip that he put out in the media scrum.
Yes, past April.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
this coming April. That
now it seems to be the summertime.
Yeah, I
Why
mean,
so
you
long?
probably saw the same soundbite as I did.
Realistically, could be looking at him next summer.
So it's not like the UFC told Conor McGregor or his team, hey, we're delaying this. It's just what Dana White said. He said the summer. Keep in mind, he didn't even say July, June, none of that. He said the summer. So could he have meant later that year? Honestly, I doubt that. Like, summer does seem a little bit too specific. However, this could be a surprise announcement. You know, you never know. Maybe the UFC is just trying to trick us here. Maybe I'm just coping a little bit, but it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible the UFC is just kind of tricking us, getting us excited for this UFC 300 main event, and I certainly hope that's the case. It's the biggest fight to make for UFC 300 at the moment. I can't see what other fight is going to be bigger. But guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What's your headline UFC 300? Is Conor McGregor going to return in UFC 300 this summer or ever? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are the best fan base in MMA, and I'll see you guys in the next one.